We all know how the NDC reveres Chachu Chikata. And you know our position on his arrest and subsequent incarceration. Remember, we organized forums in this country, invited international lawyers who spoke on the glaring injustice that surrounded his incarceration. It was known in this country. But we did not even go the extra mile of subsequently taking out Georgina Woods. We left her there. That is the kind of party we are talking about. So today, if the same party is in power and we are faced with a situation where we have to take out a Chief Justice, in any case, the person who is going to act now, was he appointed by the NDC to the Supreme Court? Justice Bafo-Boni. Justice Bafo-Boni was appointed by President Kufuor. We also had every golden opportunity to have sidestepped Justice Bafo-Boni and proceeded to appoint Puaman JSC. Because Puaman JSC was appointed by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
But Bafo-Boni is not an appointment, is it? He's only acting.
But that is the point I'm making. He's acting on the CJ, but you know that when it comes to who acts on the CJ, the president has a say. You know, as a matter of fact. And these are the facts. So this attempt to say that, oh, we are looking for an opportunity. Also, when they removed, you see, sometimes when the MPP is talking and they are putting certain tax on the NDC, then it gives you an inclination as to their reasoning pattern
for doing something,
for doing certain things in the past. Because clearly, you never had the opportunity to appoint an electoral commissioner. So today, Akosua is just telling the whole people of this country that their decision to take out Charlotte Esse was simply because since '92, they never got the opportunity to appoint an electoral commissioner. That is a tacit acceptance. And so they are trying to put the attack on us. They think that we reason and act like the way they do. It is always about their partisan, selfish interests. But when it comes to the NDC, it is always about our national interests. And so they must begin seeing us in that light. And again, he talks about intimidating judges. How is this connected to intimidation? When you decided to clean the state at the Electoral Commission, were you intimidating the electoral commissioners? You claim that you are doing so in tandem with the law. So how is invoking a constitutional stricture by citizens of this country, based on which the president has proceeded?
Are we doing equalization here?
No, but that's what I'm trying to respond to. That's what I'm telling you, that it's not about equalization. Those petitions, are they filed by NDC people?
Well, we do not know. We haven't seen the petition.
Exactly. So that is why I'm saying that we cannot be talking about equalization. But in the case of Charlotte Esse, we know those who championed it. Indeed, my own evidence lecturer at Ghana School of Law was one of the leading proponents of the removal of Charlotte Esse, and was subsequently made a government spokesperson, the MPP spokesperson and leader of their governance committee for the 2024 general elections. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, a known MPP operative. So, but even with that, you argued and told the good people of this country that it was about the Constitution. We respected it. Today, the good people of this country have decided to invoke our constitutional stricture, and you have a problem with it. Then she made reference to the content of the petition. As a lawyer, and as a matter of principle and fidelity to the rules of our Constitution and our principles of law, I have tried so hard to refrain from attempting to comment on the contents of a petition that I have not seen.
You have not seen, exactly. Yeah.
That is my position on this, as to whether people can decide to say whatever they want to say. I know that the first statement about the purported travel of the Chief Justice came directly from Frank Davis, their legal person at the MPP head office. And so if you see NDC communicators responding to it, it is not as if they are putting out there the contents of the petition. They are simply responding to what Frank Davis organized a press conference to put out, and even sat on another sister station to put out. But based on my training, I am unable to confirm or deny that allegation until such a time that I'm privileged enough to see the contents of the petition. I still want to be committed to the principles of our law and ensure that at least we protect the sanctity of the process. But finally,
wrap it up for me.
Yes, I'll
wrap
do.
it up for me.
I have always argued that, and the greatest of respect to people who are challenged in terms of hunchback, it has always been my position that the NPP as a political party is Ghana's hunchback as far as our democratic process is concerned. It makes it difficult for us to stand straight on our feet and walk as we should as far as our democratic journey is concerned.
How so?
Every step of the way, from when the petition was filed, even before President Mahama acted, it was the NPP that organized the first press conference, telling him that he shouldn't act, as if that was not enough. They are so-called Ablakwa photocopy, who is trying so hard to mimic the Honorable Okujudo Ablakwa. Yes, that's how I see him. They are all trying to reflect the life of the Honorable Okujudo Ablakwa in opposition. That same gentleman.
They're only exercising their oversight.
They should do so, but I don't have a problem with that. That same gentleman decided to use our former Attorney General. And you know, senior comrade, that perceptions were arrived in the media about the unholy alliance between the then Attorney General and the current Chief Justice. In the midst of that, you decided to use your member of parliament, proceeded to use that same Chief Justice. And this game is about perception.
Same former AG.
Same age, former AG. To court to challenge the processes that eventually would lead to the suspension of the Chief Justice. All MPP. So you started politicizing the game from the
But
from
he's
day
still
one.
a practicing lawyer.
He is still a practicing lawyer, but there are so many lawyers in the MPP who are not known or who are not politically exposed.
But if I
it is not for
I think you serve my
It
interest
is not
better.
for nothing that even in our laws we have what we call politically exposed persons, and there's a restriction in the manner in which they conduct themselves. So he ought to have known better. In any case, he wouldn't know better because this is the same gentleman who, as AG, decided to cross the border and was engaging accused persons.
Well, we're not discussing him here. He's
Yes,
not
we
here
are
to
not. We
defend
are not.
himself,
But I'm
so-
just making a point.
Yes,
That's
and I
another
need you
side.
to land.
So that was how it started. Then you proceeded on the basis of that. Again, to organize another press conference, partisan in nature, calling on the president not to act. Their minority leader, Afenyo, a constitutional injunction. So from day one, the appetite to protect the Chief Justice was clear. And if you look at the nature of appointment of the Supreme Court judges today, Madam Tokono was appointed somewhere 2019, brought to the Supreme Court, and in no time made the Chief Justice of Ghana over her seniors. What was the motivation? I would also be right to sit on this table and argue that clearly the appointing authority then had a partisan intention of doing so. Because in this organization that you run, on City ChannelOne TV, if someone walks in tomorrow and suddenly elevated over you, those of you who have worked here in years, how would you feel about it? We have organizational culture.
If there's merit in there, why not?
How can they be merit? If you have sat on the bench for close to 10 years, Justice Bafo sat there for over a decade, and someone comes less than a year or two, promoted to be Chief Justice over him, and the likes of Poorman, and we all know, those of us who are in the profession, we know that experience comes from practice.
Practice, yeah.
And we respect seniority in law. You know that as a matter of fact. So, if there's anybody trying to politicize our judiciary, it is a new patriotic party, my sister and co. But I can assure them that the NDC will and the good people of this country will continue to act as a disinfectant to their unethical attempts to infiltrate our state institutions and turn them to political breeding grounds.
Thank you,
as far as their party is concerned.
Akosua, they argue that the MPP has elected themselves spokespersons for the CJ.
You know, the same constitution that he says gives room to remove the CJ, the same constitution that also allows an injunction to be placed on the process. All his argument in summary has been equalization. You did this, you did this, you did that, and therefore you cannot question. And so we will do same. That's essentially what he said. Look at the committee that sat on her so-called suspension, right? He just mentioned Justice Poorman, that's his name. PNC General Secretary.
Point of correction, no committee sat on her suspension. There is no committee.
No, for appointed, sorry. the setup of the committee. He knows what I'm
Council
referring
of State,
to.
the president in consultation with the Council of State proceeded to set up
a committee.
Yeah.
But we know that that was also influenced. So you have Palman, who is a general secretary of the PNC. You have infamous Domlevo, who is also there. Then the last person, I was trying to remember who the last person was. Oh, former Speaker Do Ajaho.
Yeah.
No problem. Now you tell us that, and he says that our spirited defense and information as let out by Frank Davis is what gave information that they felt compelled to defend. Now, the very person that you are talking about, don't forget that we've heard them say that she's politically exposed. Haven't you heard them say, ultimately, aside the petition that was that we haven't seen, but snippets of it keep leaking, is the fact that they claim she's politically exposed. If the president has a president at any point in time has the opportunity to appoint Supreme Court judges, just the appointment alone makes you politically exposed, because you are being appointed by the president. The president also represents a party, and once the president is in power, clearly a ruling party is in place. Now let's talk about Justice Bafuboni. And as far as political exposure is concerned, his brother is the owner of Radio Gold. Another brother was implicated in the NCA. That's not his brother. The Bafuboni Radio Gold is not his brother.
I cannot confirm
that.
that.
That's inaccurate. But he was not even, the late Bafuboni was not even the owner of Radio Gold.
Please, brother, please, it's out there, so you'd have to speak to it. I know that.
I'm telling
you,
it
is linked. It is linked to it. Brother of Eugene Bafuboni, NCA issue where they got jailed. Then last but not the least, it's also claimed that he's the husband of the prison service boss, Patience Bafuboni. So who was appointed by who? The president. What is more political exposure than this? You can talk about merits and amongst other things, and that's fine. And that goes into the decision of who becomes the Chief Justice. But I am saying that whatever petition it was and its content, so far as what has been out there is concerned, sounds petty and frivolous at best. Because the person of Gertrude is Saba Araba Tokonu, a Wesley Girls High School alumna, a woman who has walked a fine path in law, who breathes law, who has no scandal against her, but for what they've done. And what they do, and I'm saying that it is part of the process. Didn't we see the Attorney General engage in high-profile propaganda when he brought the NSB boss and the issues therein? High-profile propaganda to scare people. And I'm saying that ultimately, it's not even the EC. Telling us the EC is the architecture of running the state. What decisions that the EC take aside conducting the elections and making sure the album is good? You've consistently positioned, you've equated the EC to the Chief Justice. Really? You are going to deny people justice because you are going to put your people in place and they are going to do the bidding of the president. And if they fail to do it, only God knows what will happen to them. So that is what they intend to do. When he was talking, he said, oh, NDC has appointed Chief Justice before. I was clear in my earlier submission that the Mills Muhammad administration did not have the opportunity to appoint a Chief Justice. Now, if you say that Georgina Wood also, you could have removed her, you tried. In fact, when they tried, people who had conscience at the time rose up and said, hey, you dare not touch her. Based on what? But now those people have found their way into government, into positions, and they are quiet because they are eating. So we will not expect them to speak. But ultimately, we will all suffer for it. The news is around the necks of Supreme Court judges. They are the ones they are coming for. So that whatever cases would arise in the future, even if they leave government, these people will be there to protect them. That is ultimately what they are gunning for.
But that is
Let's not even pretend.
Judges at the Supreme Court, not to protect political parties and political appointees.
Fantastic. But with them, you know, he said something. And I was looking at him, I said, Suhuyini, first I'm meeting him, but he's so calmly pushing a certain narrative, telling us that they take national interest as far as governance is concerned. Look at the termination of appointments since they came to power. A party that preach 24-hour economy and jobs. What business do you have clearing people from institutions and justifying sin?
Appointments
Let me
which
tell
they say
you.
were recklessly
Let me
made
tell you.
after
People
December
will take
7th.
these institutions to court. And if they do the reset like they are doing with these judges and whatnot, all those cases will be thrown out. That's what they are looking at. People will go to court on these cases. The judges have conscience. They'll win those cases. So he cannot tell us that this is a national interest. All he did say, and they conveniently always throw out the issue when it comes to Charlotte to say. When it comes, I say again, in women in governance and women in politics, I know how lonely it is. So I don't like to come at women. I know what I even went through.
Yeah.
So when it comes to women,
So did you defend Charlotte?
I cringe because
Did you
you are
defend her?
putting. I didn't have to defend her.
Ah,
You were there to defend her.
Oh, well,
her
you are
her
a woman,
deputies.
I thought that you are cursing.
I do not work at the EC. Her deputies who she worked with are the ones who came for her. It wasn't MPP that came for her, and that's a fact that we need to place on record. And we know this, but they carefully sidestep that fact. Imagine working with people and then they come and say all these things about you. That was where it started. So if we make it look like it was an MPP person that went to do it, certainly not. But you kept on hounding that fact and making it clear that that removal is what has occasioned what is being done today because after all, a precedent has been set. That's not a precedent. You are saying that she's the embodiment, the EC is the embodiment of the governance architecture of the country. And I reject that notion.
Very well. Very well. Granted.
But briefly, I think that
In a few seconds.
Yes, I think that I deserve the right to reply. You see, like I indicated, the NDC or His Excellency President Mahama will not be moved by the effusions of frustration of the new patriotic party. We know that we have a social contract with the good people of this country. And under that contract, they have certain expectations. So what worries us, anytime we take a decision, is whether the decision we are taking is in tandem with the laws of our country, and whether we can account to the good people of this country as far as those decisions are concerned. For the politics, the MPP can continue to play their politics. But my caution to the good people of this country is that they must understand, listening to them now, that the agenda to take them out of power as a way of punishment is only 30% of the work required to actually hold them accountable. Because out of power, they are even poisoned more to do damage to our democracy. And that is the most important part that we must pay attention to. And you see, it is not enough to hold the ruling government accountable, but we must also begin holding them accountable because their actions today seem rather to be portraying to everybody that their actions surrounding decisions they took in the judiciary were clearly partisan, not even political, partisan. And that is worrying. Are you therefore surprised that Afrobarometer report, we didn't bring it out. They indicated in their findings that Ghanaians had lost confidence in our judiciary. CDD came out with the same report. Their own Nana Akomia, spokesperson to their campaign in 2024, had cause to make that statement publicly under Nana Danko Akufo-Addo that indeed people had lost confidence in the judiciary of Ghana. That was their legacy. So if the good people of this country today see an opportunity to inject some level of sanity and confidence back into that judiciary, and they take advantage of that, the NDC has nothing to do except to champion the interests of the good people of this country. Can't we?
I think we are over-politicizing.
I'm just telling you that if the good people of this country, are they politicians?
No.
If they demand of their president, who coincidentally happens to be a flag bearer of the NDC in the last election, if the good people of this country demand of their president that because of this series of surveys that shows that there's waning confidence in our judiciary, there's the need for some accountability, and decide to invoke our laws of the country to demand that the president gives that accountability, how is that political or partisan? It's not partisan.
Could we have engaged for reforms instead of a removal?
Look, it is not the decision of the president to make, and that's the point I'm making. It is the decision of the good people of this country. Why? Is it the president who petitioned himself?
No.
He was petitioned by citizens of this country. And like I indicated, those petitions did not start with President Mahama. Indeed, even when President Nana Addo was president, Justice Tokono had petitions against her. So why are we creating the impression that this is political? I can understand that the NPP is doing everything to get attention, especially after their humiliating defeat. But they should leave our democratic processes alone. And unless, of course, you don't understand the role of our electoral commission when it comes to our democracy. If you think that the judiciary or the executive or the legislature is more important than our electoral commission when it comes to our democracy, then you must have a rethink. Because without the electoral commission that guarantees free and fair elections that the people can have confidence in, these branches of government will not exist.
Very well. Thank you, Hamza.